Hi, welcome. I'm Mary and I hook books. I crochet things inspired by books. And my downstairs neighbor is pregnant, so I'm going to make a little baby blanket in a moss stitch. So that's fairly tight, but still kind of cute. And I found at Joann's, before mine closed, these cute bitty stripes, and look at that pretty rainbow. So this one is crayon box. So I this week plan to read a book for all the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So let's crochet. I don't know what I just read. Ring Shout has been on my TBR forever. It got so much hype when it first came out, and it deserves the hype, but I did not know what I was getting into. I knew it was about people in the clan who were aliens known as Ku Kluxes. But, this was such an epic sci-fantasy historical. This did so much in less than 200 pages. It was a little too fantasy for me personally, and a little too historical. My bias for sci-fi is definitely coming out. It did so much though. And I think that might be why I'm not the biggest. I like this. It was very good. It was objectively well written. I love exploring this idea. I loved the climax. And I don't know if I would have made the same choice in her shoes, honestly. So that is saying a lot. And it's only 185 pages, so I don't want to say too much. But it did. The ending, it just kept going and going and going. I thought we were done, and it's oh wait, no, we have more closure and more closure and more closure. So objectively, this was so good. So much going on in such a small package. The fantasy elements were a little much for me. So it's not a 5-star, but it's definitely a strong 4, or maybe even a 4.5. If you have not read Ring Shout, I feel like I'm the last person on the planet that has not read it yet. But if you have not, I would definitely recommend it. thinking about where our values come from, and some things are fairly obvious, but other times something comes up and I go like, oh, that's where we got that. So I am currently listening to God of the Woods, and this was on so many people's best of the year last year. It was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee, and I don't really remember what it's about. Someone went missing at a campground. That's as far as we've gotten. But I'm at this part very early on. I think I'm 5% into the book. So I don't think it's really a spoiler. This woman looks at her daughter and says, you know, I don't really like to look at my daughter's body this way, but it's a mother's responsibility to be her daughter's first critic. And that'll make her strong for when she's an adult. And I instantly thought, oh my gosh, you mean you have to be your kid's first bully? Can we say intergenerational trauma? She talks about, well, you know, it's what my mom did, and I didn't like it at the time, but now I understand. Don't do that. Do not bully your children. So, like I said, I'm about 5% in, and I was looking for Munster's Leash to take him on a little walk because it is gorgeous outside, and we found a favorite toy that we thought was lost. So that is some of the chaos in the background. And the stray cat is by the window telling me, hi, you haven't fed me today. I fed you at lunch. I am the biggest sucker. Anyway, so if you hear background stuff, that's what's going on. I love my baby so much though. I also finished today The Star's My Destination, and I think overall I'm kind of over classic sci-fi, but toward the end I was reflecting on some of the patterns in classic sci-fi. A lot of the time it's so much more about the ideas than the plot or the characters, and a lot of the time it may be subtext, and a lot of the time it's just text. It turns into a philosophical, I don't even want to say debate. Sometimes it's a debate between characters, but the philosophy really takes center stage. And in The Stars, Our Destination, this is like the tiniest little spoiler. It's not like a plot spoiler, but they're talking toward the end about how you are a citizen of a community first and an individual second. And I was like, you know, that probably was a more common way of looking at the world. And I absorbed a lot of that in classic sci-fi. So I am much more other-centered and community-minded, but that might be one of the places that I got it, is from classic sci-fi that does try to teach that lesson. Overall, The Star's My Destination feels like the second fever dream I've had this week. It is much more about ideas. Yes. Oh no, did we lose our toy under the refrigerator? It is much more about the ideas. There's all these little episodes. it was kind of hard to keep track of the female characters. Only one of them really has anything interesting about her character, so that's pretty typical of classic sci-fi. Yeah. I think this probably actually would make a really good movie if they could get it. Our main character is abandoned on this spaceship, and he's the only one for 6 months on this ship called the Nomad. And eventually he's rescued, and other stuff happens. But he kind of goes on a revenge tour to figure out why they left him. And then some other cool, like, scientific concepts spring from that. So, neat ideas. I think it would make a pretty good movie if they chopped out some of the little side quests. Not really probably my niche anymore, but it was good classic sci-fi. Era. I got tired of God of the Woods. There were way too many storylines, character perspectives, and timelines going on. And many of those timelines were like rich people being like, oh, I'm so miserable because I'm rich. And the interesting timeline where like a child has disappeared from this summer camp, like, it really only popped up twice in, I think I got to like 15% of the book, so I put that one down. And then I picked up a super short book because it came in from the library, Some Small Things, and I got 7% in. It's super short. I got 7% in and nothing had happened yet. And I understand that, especially it was historical, you have to kind of set the scene, but nothing had happened. In a short book, you have to be concise. So I DNF'd that. So we're going back to yellow. We'll go back to green later, but for now, I have set my heart to 5, and thank goodness, I am absolutely loving this. I love the humor. This is what I wanted books like Annibot to be. This is sweet, heartfelt. I love the humor, and he does say that puns are always funny, and I agree. So I am loving this character as like an anatomy geek. He explains that on the map of Michigan, Ypsilanti, where he lives, is in your anatomical snuff box. And that's one of the fun days I get to teach because we get to make jokes about your snuff box. So I thought that was so cute. And like I said, I am loving it. I was really afraid that I just didn't like reading anymore. I also picked up The Air Affair. I think if I weren't in a reading slump, I would have liked this more. It's very surrealist. I also am not like a big Jane Austen kind of person, so I think if I did like that, maybe I would get more out of it. It was kind of a fun, wacky world, but I just wasn't connecting with it. So that was 3 green DNFs. So we're going back to set my heart to 5. and we'll deal with green later. I picked up a shift this weekend and I am just beat. And the mean stray kitty is meowing outside. And not that you need to know any of this, but there's a really nice, sweet, great kitty that he thinks he lives here. And I think maybe he did at one point. Because if I leave the door open, he'll just walk in. So, he is the sweetest. And then there's another little white kitty that I only see sometimes. And then there's a huge orange cat and a huge tabby cat. And they're almost always together. And they clearly beat up the sweet kitty. And like probably the other little nice white kitty. So they don't get treats. You tell him, Munster. So, if you hear upset kitties in the background, that is what's going on. While we're talking about kitties, I had a coworker this weekend that made me feel so much better about my crazy cat lady tendencies. Because I was telling her how I have to feed the stray kitties. I mean, it's not their fault they're strays. So she said that she drives around with cat food and water in her car in case she sees a stray kitty. And I'm like, I think I'm in friend love with you. Like, oh, yeah. Woman after my own heart. So, anyway, speaking of my heart, set my heart to 5. Oh my gosh, this was so good. I loved this humor. This is my type of humor 1,000%. And I love the cluelessness of a robot learning emotions. And like he's learning emotions through movies. And then he wants to write his own movie to influence how people view robots. And it's really clever. You get these scenes, theoretically, from his movie sprinkled throughout. And I know some people aren't going to like that format, but I thought it was nicely done. And I love puns, and so does our main character. And I also love it when people don't understand that, like, people can get jokes and, like, they have to explain the joke, and it can go so wrong. Like, it can be so dumb and annoying, but it was so well done that when he would stop to explain one of his jokes, it was hilarious. It made the joke even more funny. And like, that normally doesn't happen. So, utterly love this. So, definitely 5 stars. I think they are making a movie, which I think will be so good if they capture the humor and the heart and the really well crafted storytelling of this book.
Days, remembering to forget all the bad ones. I remember when college seemed so important, but is it worth it? Been wondering what truly matters to me. I know for sure it's not a fancy degree. I'd like to do what I love, but what if I'm not good enough?
This weekend, I also read Get Well Soon, and this is about the plagues and the heroes who fight them. And I love the Arthurial voice. Like, she is so sassy. It's also a couple years old, so like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones are never going to be outdated references, but she does say like Game of Thrones 2011 through present. And I'm like, oh, okay, that tells you exactly when this was published. But I loved this, and I did not know so much about several of these plagues. And what I really liked was the social commentary, the social context that she put a lot of these things in. And it's very easy to feel very discouraged by how we deal as societies with plagues, with pandemics, with just disability or illness in general. And there are times where people sucked. And she talks about the bubonic plague, when people literally locked their plague-ridden children out of their houses and listened to them bang on the doors until they were too weak and they died. But then there's other times, like with polio, or with the dancing plague, the dancing fever, that communities really came together and helped each other. And it brought out the best. So that really gives me some hope. There are a couple things, as if my TBR is not already 300 books long, but I do kind of want to look into some of these things. Like, especially, I did not know about the legalities of the Spanish flu of 1918. Looking back, we're just like, yeah, that happened. But I didn't realize, like, with the war effort, it was a whole legal and political thing. So I think I have a book about the Spanish flu. So this really does make me want to pick more stuff up, and I'm already kind of into, like, plagues and pandemics and apocalypses. But this was so good, so well written. I'm going to have to see if she's written anything else, because I loved the voice. I loved her humor. I loved her reflectiveness. I loved her point of view on these things. So I am so happy that my last two books have both been 5 stars.
Split personality, sometimes sour, sometimes sweet. An M. Night Shyamalan story called Everything's Peachy. Can we just skip straight to the plot twist, please?
I finished the Resistors, and this is so what we as a country need right now, because resistance sometimes is protests and civil disobedience and lawsuits, and other times it's gardening and knitting and baseball and finding community and joy. So this was very inspiring and reflective. It is distant enough from our current day that it wasn't uncomfortable for me to read about, but definitely a lot of parallels to the AI Big Brother surveillance state, a lot of racist type policies that are self-perpetuating, and then people who just love baseball and form a wonderful community to support each other and help each other. And it's not, we're going to solve the dystopia with baseball. It is, we are going to make our small difference as big of a difference as we can by staying together, supporting each other, and finding joy in community. And I loved that.
Life's all about balance.
I couldn't get a really good angle without looking really conspicuous, but I came out to my car on my way to work, and in our parking lot was a state trooper SUV and 6 other cars with flashing lights. And I saw the state trooper with his hat, and I saw someone with a black vest that said police, and under it, it said ICE. And as I was driving away, I also saw someone's vest that said FBI, and my heart just sank. And they're not in my building. This was the building catty corner to me. But I don't see how people can be okay with their neighbors being uprooted from their honest lives. And yes, there are individuals in every group that suck and do things that are bad. But these are literally our neighbors. And now I have to go to work, but yeah. It's very disheartening. I was planning on finishing my blanket tonight because I'm almost done with my last purple book, but Fry has decided to be a lap baby. Mr. Gorgeous. And you can't possibly move a kitty when it wants to be in your lap. That's just not okay. And at work, I was talking with my coworkers and telling them what happened earlier. And they said, oh yeah, down on, and they said the name of my street. And I was like, yeah. I was aware we had a very large minority population. We have a lot of Hispanic people, but a lot of Middle Eastern and African people as well. And apparently it's been going on, and I haven't seen it. So, the world we live in. But we are taking care of each other. We are taking care of ourselves. We are taking small, manageable steps to make things better for all of us, our friends, our neighbors, our family, our community, and doing everything that we can.
Maybe I believe in the language of love. It's written in the heavens and the stars up above. It takes a little patience, but if you give enough, it'll work out right. It just takes a little time. Some might say there's a way to be open and honest with the voice in your head.
Finished. I have been in such a slump. It has been so hard to read or do anything. It's just been like a rough time the last 6 weeks or so. But I did finish Almonds and Raisins, and here I am thinking, you know what I need? You know what the world needs is more cute, cozy mysteries. And we'll have a wonderful Australian empowered female sleuth. It'll be a good, relaxing time. And I got a book written, I think in the 90s, set in the 1920s, talking about the Jewish homeland in Palestine. It's like, I mean, it always, the Phryne Fisher mysteries always have really interesting little historical bits. This is the first one that didn't have like an interview or like any extra content. Like normally they have something talking with the author and or the actress who does the audiobooks and played Phryne in the TV show. But yeah, I wonder what that's about. But the setting of the Jewish community in Melbourne in the 1920s and them not being able to get a fair shake as far as the law is concerned and having to hire the Honorable Miss Phryne Fisher to help them get justice for a member of their own, like, checks out. And Kerry Greenwood does a lot of really good research, and I sometimes like the coziness more really than the mystery in some of these books, but I mean both were pretty good in this one. The mystery unfolded in like a very well paced and surprising way. So overall, I think as far as the mystery is concerned, this might be one of the better Phrynes.
It's okay, I can't blame you for hoping it all works out the right way instead. But it's no secret, I know that we can keep it beside this picture of you and I. But I could breathe and relieve the anxiety just knowing you'll always be mine. Maybe I believe in the language of love. It's written in the heavens and the stars up above. It takes a little patience, but if you give enough, it'll work out right. Maybe there is something you and I can do.
Thank you for joining me this week. I've really enjoyed making this blanket, and I will have the pattern in the description box. And I don't know what else to give them, if I should give them anything else. I have kitties. Those are my babies. So I don't know, like maybe some things that are disposable, like baby wipes or something. I don't know. So if you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments box. Help me out. And in the meantime, thank you for joining me. Please take care of yourself. Please look out for each other. And we're gonna get through this if we just keep our shoulders back, our heads up, and breathe.